Feedback. So they're saying that they can't hear anything. No, try it. No, try. And then if they can't hear,
ask them.
I am communicating with them.
Krishna. So, yeah, those of you who are online, if you could just give us feedback if the sound is okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Krishna, thanks and welcome to everyone who's present here today for the Saturday Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. Today we read from Canto number 4, Chapter 30, entitled The Activities of the Kshetras, and specifically text number 47. So I'll go through the verse line by line. Tatra Vishishtaye Vriksha.
Tatra Vishishtaye Vriksha.
Gita Duhitaram Tada.
Gita Duhitaram Tada.
Jagaste Kachetobhya.
Ujharaste Vichetaya.
Padishta Swayambhuva.
Upadishtaha Swayambhuvaha.
Tatra Vashishtaye Vriksha.
Tatra Vishishtaye Vriksha.
Gita Duhitaram Tadha.
Gita Duhitaram Tada.
Ujhaduste Kachetobhya.
Jahriste Paricheto Bhaya.
Padishta Swayambhuva.
Upadishta Swayambhuva.
Tatra Vashishtaye Vriksha.
Tatra Vishishtaye Vriksha.
Gita Duhitaram Tadha.
Gita Duhitaram Tada.
Ujhaduste Kachetobhya.
Jahriste Paricheto Bhaya.
Upadishta Swayambhuva.
Upadishtaha Swayambhuva.
Vasishtaye Vriksha.
Tatra Vishishtaye Vriksha. Gita Duhitaram Tada Puja Updikta Svayambhuva Tatrāvishishtāye Vriksha Gita Duhitaram Tada Jagaste Pracheto Bhaya Upajita Swayambhuva Tatrāvishishtāye Vriksha Gita Duhitaram Tada Ujjharaste Pracheto Bhaya Upajita Swayambhuva Tatrāvishishtāye Vriksha Gita Duhitaram Tada Ujjharaste Pracheto Bhaya
Upajita Swayambhuva
Swayambhuva
Tatrāvishishtāye Vriksha
Tatrāvishishtāye Vriksha
Gita Duhitaram Tada
Gita Duhitaram Tada
Ujjharaste Pracheto Bhaya
Ujjharaste Pracheto Bhaya
Upajita Swayambhuva.
Upadishtaha Swayambhuva
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Tatra Vishishtaye Vriksha
Tatrāvishishtāye Vriksha
Bhita Duhitaram Tada
Gita Duhitaram Tada
Jahraste Pracheto Bhaya
Ujjharaste Pracheto Bhaya
Upadishtaha Swayambhuva
Upajita Swayambhuva
Tatrāvishishtāye Vriksha
Tatra
Tatrāvishishtāye Vriksha
Vriksha
Gita Duhitaram Tada
Gita Duhitaram Tada
Ujjharaste Prachodaya
Ujjharaste Pracheto Bhaya
Upadistha Swayambhuva
Upadishtaha Swayambhuva
Swayambhuva.
We'll do the word for word translation. Tatra
Tatra
Ataha
Avastitaha
Ye Vrikshaha
trees
Pitaha
Great
Duhitaram
Duhitaram
their daughter.
daughter
Tatha
Tada
at time.
at that time
Ujjaru delivered.
delivered.
Te
they
Prachetobhyaha
Prachetobhaya
into the Prachetas.
unto the
Into the
Prachetas
Prachetas.
Upadishkaha
Upadisthaha
advice.
being
being
advised
advised.
Swayambhuva
Swayambhuva
Lord Brahma.
My
Lord
Lord
Brahma.
Brahma.
Translation into purport by His Divine Grace, Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
So we can repeat the translation. The remaining trees,
The remaining trees,
being very much afraid of the Prachetas,
being very much afraid of the Prachetas,
immediately delivered their daughter.
immediately delivered their daughter
the advice of Lord Brahma.
At the advice of Lord Brahma.
So the Srila Prabhupada. The daughters of the trees is referred to in text 13 of this chapter. This daughter was born of Kandu and Kamlocha. The society girl Kamlocha, after giving birth to the child, immediately left for the heavenly kingdom. While the child was crying, the king of the moon took compassion upon her and saved her by putting his finger into her mouth. This child was cared for by the trees, and when she grew up, by the order of Lord Rama, she was delivered to the Prachetas as their wife. The name of the girl was Manisha, as the next verse will explain. It was the predominating deity of the trees that delivered the daughter. In this connection, Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada states, Vrikshaha tad adish tatar devataha. The trees means the controlling deity of those trees. In Vedic literatures, we find that there is a controlling deity of the water. Similarly, there is a controlling deity of the trees. The Prachetas were engaged in burning all trees to ashes, and they considered the trees their enemies. To pacify the Prachetas, the predominating deity of the trees, under the advice of Lord Brahma, delivered the daughter Manisha. Om Madhyana Kamirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurudipena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manodishtam Sakinam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamadhyam Dadati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sukhatevi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bangam Namkhayate Girim Tam Hare Krishna. So I'm very fortunate and happy to be amongst you all today. And also thanks for giving me this opportunity, even though I'm not qualified in any way, but at the behest of superiors, I'm asked to do this class, so I'll take this opportunity as that for glorification. So, in Canto 4, I guess if you start just to give a bit of a background, we have Vidura and Maitreya who's speaking about the dynasty of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And particularly in this chapter, we're hearing about various great kings like Dhruva Maharaj, Anga, Prachina Bari, and now the Prachetas. So in the context of these verses, and the preceding ones, we're hearing a lot about Prachina Bari and the Prachetas. So the Prachetas, as you know, are the 10 sons of King Prachina Bari. And Prachina Bari, although he was very materialistic king in that way, he advised his children, Prachetas, to go and perform austerity and thereafter to, increase the population of the world. So the Prachetas actually are very refined personalities, very exalted personalities, and we can learn a lot from them and apply in our lives. So I guess the first one is that once King Prachina Bari gave this instruction to perform the austerity, the Prachetas went to the sea. It's explained a big lake, but it also mentioned sea water. So we can understand it was a very big body of water. And in that body of water, they were going to perform tapasya. But as it so happens, on the way to the water, they actually came across Lord Shiva by chance. So as we know, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavan Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Kaya Bhakti Lata Bija. So, all the living entities in this world, they are wandering throughout the universe, and some of them are going to higher planets, some of them to lower planets. But out of millions of these people, one may be fortunate enough to meet a guru by the grace of Krishna. And the guru will then plant the seed of bhakti within the heart of that individual. And from there, that seed grows into a bhakti lata tree or a kripa. So in this way, Shiva was there, who planted the seed of bhakti in the hearts of the Prachetas by giving them the Rudra Gita. So the Prachetas, they were in the water singing the Rudra Gita and performing austerities, it's mentioned, for 10,000 years. So obviously this was in a preceding time, potentially Satya Yuga, sent to be created. Because obviously if you're doing it for 10,000 years, just doing tapasya means the lifespan of the individual of a very, very long time. So after performing this penance for 10,000 years, they pleased Lord Vishnu to such an extent that they actually had a personal darshan of Lord Vishnu while they were in the water. So Lord Vishnu came and explained that he came with his 8-handed form, and he was extremely pleased with the Prachetas. Firstly, for their austerity, but specifically he mentions that although they were 10 brothers, right, they were all unified in performing this tapasya, and they were very friendly and cooperative with each other. So this is, I thought, a very important point. Most of us would probably have siblings. I don't know if you would have 9 other siblings, but even if it's one, you will find that sometimes we actually, fight amongst each other. And in that way, we can't even sometimes, stand one sibling. But here we have an example of 10 brothers. So it's not even any sisters involved, it's brothers, a lot of testosterone. But they were able to actually, live with each other for 10,000 years underwater, under severe pressure, severe austerities. But they were managed to be very self-controlled and so friendly with each other. And the fact that Lord Vishnu, specifically mentioned this, it just shows how much Lord Vishnu appreciates cooperation devotees. So we can understand this even by our own Srila Prabhupada, who used to say that our love for him will depend on how we cooperate once he left the planet. And he also gave the example during his lifetime. His Guru Maharaj mentioned to him personally. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that, so they had a new temple that was being built in Kolkata, but there were a lot of fighting amongst Prabhupada's followers who were staying at the temple about which room each devotee would get, etc. So at that time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentioned, better to sell the marble from the temple and use that money to print books. And in this way, he was showing his, in one sense, his disgust with the lack of cooperation between the devotees at the temple. So in this example, we can see that when the devotees are cooperating very nice, then the Lord manifests, because that's exactly what happened with the Kshetras. I guess we have an example in Brisbane here as well, through the efforts of many, many devotees over many years. But now Shri God inside has manifested, and that's all due to cooperation. So, just to elaborate on that, everyone is individual, right? So even after we get liberated and go back home, back to Godhead, everyone still remains individual. They have their own personalities, their own views, and their own likes and dislikes. But we have to kind of see how we can work together, put aside our differences, and basically try to push forward this movement of Srila Prabhupada. So, His Holiness Kesava Swami Maharaj gives this example of, if you can imagine someone going into the hospital. And in the hospital, as you know, people are very sick. That's why they're in the hospital. Maybe mentally, maybe physically. But if someone comes into the hospital and they see all the sick people, and they'll be like, why is everybody sick here? So you can imagine then that that person, he's not fully aware, not fully mentally aware, because the hospital is a place for people to actually get, cured of their issues. So in this way, we have to understand, yes, we come into temple, we expect to see devotees who are doing everything according to Srila Prabhupada's instructions, who are trying to follow the regulated principle and become better, better character. But at the same time, we have to not expect that people are going to be, or devotees are going to be perfect. It's a journey, it takes a long time. And if we think, why is this devotee saying this? Why doesn't he smile? Or why doesn't she, glorify me, or whatever the case? Then in that way, we can also be similar to the person who goes to the hospital and ask the question, why is everyone sick? So after the Prachetas, after Lord Vishnu praised the Prachetas for their austerity, he gave them wonderful benedictions, and one of them was to marry the daughter of the Rishis from Lord Shah. So the Prachetas then come out of the water. And it's actually very interesting that even after just meeting the Lord, seeing the Lord face to face, they come out of the water and they see that all of the trees have overgrown and basically taken over the entire land. Now, because the Prachetas are kingly of nature, they are Kshatriyas. They are meant to provide for the citizens that they rule. So naturally, they became extremely angry that the trees have taken up all of the land, and there wasn't any land left over for cultivating the land, produce agriculture, food, which is a necessity for all of the living entities. So through the furious nature there, they actually burnt almost all of the trees down. So they exhibited quite an extreme anger. And one may question that they just had the darshan of the Lord. They performed 10,000 years of severe tapasya. They are considered pure devotees of the Lord. That's the only way you can actually get the darshan of the Lord. So one may rightly question how these Prachetas then become so angry to the extent that they burnt almost all of the trees down. If they burnt a little bit of the trees, you can maybe understand, okay, they were angry, they burned a few of the trees. But it's specifically mentioned in the previous verse. After seeing all of the trees on the surface of the earth were being burnt to ashes, Lord Brahma immediately came. So they were extremely angry, not just a little bit. So again, how can such pure souls become so angry? So in this regard, we call a pastime of Srila Prabhupada. So in 1972, Srila Prabhupada was in Amsterdam, and he was present there for the installation of Jagannath or Jagannath deities in the temple. So this here we see Lord Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, very beautifully dressed and being ready for the Snan Yaksha this evening. So in that way, Srila Prabhupada was there to actually install Lord Jagannath. And so at some point, there was a lot of publicity. There were the TV media personalities that were present. There was a lot of people who came for this glorious occasion. So there was a lot of eyes, present at that time. And you'd expect that each devotee would be on their best behavior because this is going to be televised on the air and everyone is going to be witnessing this. So naturally, you want to put forth their best feet. But it's explained that during this event, the time came for the fire sacrifice. There was a yajna that was being performed, and Srila Prabhupada was personally going to perform that. And what had happened is that the yajna was there, but there was no fruits placed around the yajna, which is something that Prabhupada, set the standard of. So Prabhupada became extremely angry. So they sent the devotee to bring the fruits. And the Mataji came forward. Actually, the first, the Mataji did not come. They sent another person. And finally, the Mataji came with the fruits, but it was all cut up in fruit salad fashion. So these fruits, for the yajna, they have to be whole, they cannot be cut up. And when Prabhupada saw this, he became furious. So he chastised the temple president and he wanted to know what was going on, who did this, who this rascal he. And again, all of the TV personalities was being televised. But Prabhupada didn't actually care because his focus wasn't on putting up a show to the public, but his focus was actually on pleasing Lord Jagannath. It was his inspiration. And like this, I think there was other issues where the devotees grossly miscalculated the dimensions of the deities, and they couldn't even be placed on the altar. They had to close the curtains, fix up the altar, so there's a whole lot of renovations happening while Prabhupada is sitting right there. And in Sri Prabhupada was just very, very good for that whole thing. And again, I heard one recountable story where His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami says that when Prabhupada was at his peak of anger, a hippie in the audience actually stood up and said, Prabhupada, you're angry, so you should chant, because that's what you say. And Prabhupada, being so humble, he picked up his bead bag and he actually started chanting that. So again, people at the events could easily have, misjudged the situation and misunderstood it. But here's a, supposedly elevated personality, the guru of an entire movement. How can he get so angry in front of everyone? But the point is, when your anger is aligned with the will of the Lord, then it is the correct use of anger. So yesterday, the Prabhu in the Bhagavatam class explained very nicely how our six, anarthas, lust, greed, anger, pride, envy, these things can all be used actually in the service of the Lord. And we'll explain a bit later about anarthas. But yes, the point is that the personalities, elevated personalities, we should not now imitate this and become angry. But if there is, an opportunity where anger aligns with the will of the Lord, then that is something that is accepted by Shastras. So the other point here is that when the Prachetas saw these trees that were overgrown and taken over the whole land, it's actually a very important point. So we mentioned that the Prachetas were gone for 10,000 years, performing austerities, but in the meantime, their father, King Kachinabari, he was, as we mentioned, very materialistic, But again, by chance, he had a great fortune of meeting Narada Muni. And in that time, Narada Muni instructed him. So first, because of his nature, Narada Muni couldn't directly, teach to him. So he came up with the allegory, which is basically, a story that you make up to get your point across. And that was the story of King Krishna, who actually represents us as, the living soul. So King Puranjana, who is living in the city of 9 gates, which is the city of the body. And King Puranjana is representing each living entity. And so Puranjana. So King Puranjana, he goes around looking for things to basically satisfy himself. He's a gross sense gratification of this. So he finds the city of 9 gates, and he spends his time for many, many years trying to find happiness in various different activities. And his friend also comes with him to the city. And the name that Narada gives is Avignata, which is actually super soul. And so it explains that King Puranjana spends many, many years trying to decide. But at one time, the city gets attacked, which is actually representing the situation that we will all face, which is death, old age. And in that way, King Puranjana, meets his demise. And through that story, King Krishna actually realized that, hey, Narada, first he didn't understand the story. And then Narada gives another example of a beautiful deer who's in the forest trying to enjoy itself without knowing that there is a dangerous tiger lurking around, waiting to attack this deer. So that's a similar situation that we all face. We may be, going through life very happily, but we have to keep in mind that at any moment death can strike. And so when Narada Muni mentioned this example, then King Krishna immediately realized that he was on the wrong path, and he became enlightened, and he actually left the kingdom. And when the king leaves the kingdom, everything will naturally go out of balance. In this way, the trees became overgrown and encroached on all of the land. So this is a very, very important point in our own lives, and it relates to the point of inattention. So His Grace Bhagavatam Prabhu, I recall a story, he's mentioned a few times. So in his young days, in Srila Prabhupada sent the devotees to Hong Kong. Bhagavatam Prabhu was one of them. And so you can imagine going to Hong Kong in the 1970s. There's no devotees of the same faith, or we have to start moving. And so he received the plant, which he was told was the tulsi plant. So Bhagavatam Prabhu very, very nicely, worshipped tulsi every morning, woke up, performed arati, and took care of this plant. And he mentions that it happened for quite some time, up until when another devotee came who knew a bit better, mentioned that, do you know what? This is actually not a tulsi plant. It's just a random plant. So Bhagavatam Prabhu gives that example, and he says that, he didn't know any better at that stage of our situations in different. But in that way, inattention can lead to watching, weeds instead of watching, the correct or the bhakti lava that's correct. So essentially, we have to understand that when we perform bhakti and we, taking up some service, we have to actually do it with a very, sincere attitude. Because if we don't, we might find that instead of watching, performing these activities and watching the seed of devotion in our hearts, we might actually be watching some other beads, which are our anahatas. We might take the service, we might perform an activity for the wrong reason, maybe for fame, for power, even for wealth. So in that way, we have to be very, very attentive in our working. So in this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami said in the lecture, which we were taught in the Bhakti Shastra as well, by Srila so Rupa Goswami says, Anya Abhilashita Sinyam, Jnana Karma, Anakodena, Krishna Anushritanam, Bhakti Uchite. So when one is performing first class devotional service, the first thing he mentions is they should be free from material desires and free from knowledge obtained by philosophical speculation and activities for improving your material situation. And we should do it with the attitude or activities that are favorable for Krishna and for what pleases him, and not for what pleases us. So that's the standard that we all have to aspire to, which is to do our service with the mood of trying to please Krishna, not for our own material. So coming back to the example of weeds, we have our experience ourselves in our house, in our garden. So after a rain, generally you will find weeds that are popping up. And they pop up all the time. You can go and extract the weed, but sure enough, after the next rain, you will have to pick up the weeds too. And I know this very well. Today and I also know this very well, because when the weeds come, I will ask them, please go and pick up the weeds. And it just keeps on coming after every rain. No one actually knows where these weeds are coming from. Nobody planted these weeds, but they just pop up after the rain. So I recall a class that His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj gave. It was actually under the Ramayana, which is this, we just celebrated Rama. So it's that. But here in the Ramayana, His Holiness Radhanath Swami gives a very, very nice sketch of how Lord Rama is fighting Ravana at the peak of the Ramayana, the battle. In Ravana, fighting Ravana. And Ravana, as you know, he actually has 10 heads. His name was actually Dasagriva, 10 heads. And it's explained that Lord Ram, with his powerful bows, at one point in the fight, he actually started cutting off the heads, one by one. And even after cutting off the head, after a while, Ravana's head would grow back again. And Ram would cut it again with another arrow, and that head will pop up again. So Radhanath Swami gives the example that these heads of Ravana are exactly like our anathas. We might be going through life and trying to really, improve our policies, improve our bhakti. But out of nowhere, these anathas pop up. We might be a very angry person. But, and you try to work on it. And you might think, yes, I'm actually improving this. This incident happened, I never got angry. But try enough, come another time, there will be another expectation. And the anger will just come out, and you don't even know where it's coming from. So it's similar just to, Ravana, that Ram was continuously cutting his heads off, but out of nowhere, Ravana's heads will just pop up again. So Radhanath Swami says that yes, it's very important to work on these anathas and try to reduce them. But that's not the only method to actually get rid of the anathas, because they will come back. It's like things after the limit. Surely they will. Even if you didn't plan on, even if you have no desires, it will come out. So we see in the mind that after Lord Ram tried to just cut off the heads of Ravana and destroying it that way, Ram actually realized that the only way to kill Ravana was to go to the root of the problem, which was Ravana's heart. So he took up his bow and he shot an arrow that went directly into Ravana's heart, and in that way he, completely destroyed the scheme. So this example is that yes, like I mentioned, we need to work on our anarthas by trying to reduce them, but that's not the foolproof method. The foolproof method is to go deep within our own heart and figure out what is the root of the problem. Luckily, our Shastra has mentioned the problem. It's just forgetfulness of Krishna. And so the solution then is Smartavya Satatam Vishnu, be Smartavya Rajat Krishna. So always remember Krishna and to never forget him. And Prabhupada is in such a wonderful way and process to do this. Shravanam, Kirtan, Vishnu, Smaranam. Hearing, chanting, and holy names, forms, quality, and passing of the Lord. So that will definitely be the only way we can get to the root of our problem, which is to get things treatments. Obviously, remember, it's very practical. Prabhupada is very practical person. So that's why he gave us this wonderful process. And we ever indebted to Prabhupada for that, so you should check out this very, very seriously. The other example here that is very important. So a lot of the time, Lord Brahma, through the various stories, and because we know that Brahma is very subservient to Lord Krishna, sometimes you might have the idea that, because of previous activities where Brahma even mistaken who Krishna was and tried to steal the cows, or might have even, run after his own daughter in that sense. So Brahma is, a personality like that. But we should also understand that Brahma is a very, very exalted personality. He's the creator of the world. He has an extremely thankless task of managing the entire affairs in this world. And here we see that Lord Brahma is kind of like a firefighter in that sense. He came here, there's a problem, there's a sheer fire, all the trees are burning. And he comes here to reconcile the situation. He comes here to give a resolution to the problem. And in that way, Brahma is actually a very, very kind personality. This is not the first instance where Brahma is. Even, during the time when Hiranyakashipu was actually destroying the entire universe, he was also very trying to manage the situation. So like this firefighter is always trying to fight fires, Lord Brahma is also doing a very, very simple task. So we might think that in this way, or similarly, that people in high positions, managers, maybe have experience at work, they might be thinking, what is my manager doing? They're just telling me what to do, they don't even know the problem, want us to solve it. But actually managers have a very, very serious and important task. It's a thankless task to manage the situation, because the situation that they're managing, they're not directly involved in this, so they can't control it, but yet they have to come up with an example. So we have to be very conscious of management in general, that it is a hard task, and you should be thankful for what's being done. So there's another example that is always specialist from Maharaj in this regard. So one time there was a son, a father, and a horse that was traveling. And as they're traveling, they would go past different villages. So with the first village they were passing, the son was on the horse, and he was leading. The father was walking, and the horse was carrying the son through the village. And at that time, the villagers, they saw this situation, and the elders were thinking, look at this boy. He's so young and fit, yet he's the one sitting on the horse. And the elderly father has to walk. what kind of generation is it? You know? So when the father heard this, immediately after that, he got the son out of the horse, he sat on the horse, and they were walking. So they started, continued to walk, and they came across the next village. And in this village, the residents looked at the situation, and but just look at this. This old man, he's so heavy. He's sitting on this poor horse, and the boy is walking. So when the father heard this, he decided, okay, we'll jump off and we'll just all three walk ourselves. So they came to the third village, and then the resident says that these guys are so unintelligent. They have a fit, beautiful horse. Horses are meant to carry people. Yes, these three are just walking separately. The father needed the son sitting on the horse. So then what happened was the father decided, with the help of his son, to try and carry the horse. So the horse are riding the people. And you can imagine when you get to the next village. So in this regard, we have to really realize that, human nature is for people to judge each other and situations without knowing the full background of the situation. So we shouldn't take, words in that way from people too seriously. We should understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And in that way, if we're doing it according to the instructions of the Lord and Krishna, then we should understand that it's the right thing. And we shouldn't try to, just listen to feedback from people who might not be understanding the full situation and try to modify our approach. The last point I would like to mention here is regarding controlling deities. The Prabhupada mentioned in this Bhagavatam. So there are controlling deities for many different elements of creation. Some of them are, controlling deity of water, or rain, or the sun, Surya, etc. And Prabhupada mentions that the controlling deity of trees were actually present there when Lord Rama came, broke his trees to stop the fire. And he instructed the controlling deity of the trees to please give your daughter to these Kshetras. And you can imagine that the controlling deity of something is a very, very powerful personality, right? Even trees, I just actually Googled it and in fact just see, in this regard. But trees are so huge. In America, we have these redwood trees. And the height of these trees is, I think the tallest one is like 116 meters. Can you imagine standing at the bottom of the tree and looking up 100 meters in the sky? That's how big trees are. They actually also believe, scientifically, they are proven to be the oldest living things in the world currently. There's a tree in America which is close to 5,000 years old. And it's even very interesting that, trees can grow with the roots being extremely big, like a huge network under the ground. And from one tree and its roots, another tree can grow a very far distance away from the same roots. And scientists say that because it's grown from the same roots, they have the same DNA actually. And so in that sense, it's like one living organism. And that can go on for many, many years. They call clonal trees. And these trees can live for 80,000 years. Right now, trees are living for that long. So you can imagine trees are very, very exalted, entities. And the controlling deity here of a tree, who would be obviously the most powerful, he was extremely subservient. Brahma said, please give your daughter to resolve the situation. So we can take note here that when we given instructions from our superiors, we should take it very, very seriously and try to implement it. And again, on trees, I guess, when I was thinking about, this Prabhupada, there's not too much to choose after this particular one. Due to my, not to make anybody right, but I was thinking on the trees that even Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives the example of trees. China lopi sumi china, the role of the Rasa Krishna. Amanena Manegena Kirtana Sata. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that we should become more humble than a blade of grass. You know, a blade of grass, when you stand on the grass, they do not protest. Have you noticed? But even more importantly, once you pick up your foot, overturn the grass turns back up, ready to be trampled by someone else again. That's the kind of humility grass has. And that's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so intelligently gave this example of grass. The other example from that specific verse is about trees and how tolerant trees are. So trees live for such a long time. And as you know, you might see dogs passing by, urinating on the trees. The trees are not moving, they don't run away. Yet they provide shade, they provide so many things for us. And if people, have desire to do something else, they will also cut down the tree. And while even cutting down the tree is so tolerant, so humble, that while cutting down the tree, the person who's cutting down the tree is still being under the shade of it. So it's a very hot day, and cutting the tree is still providing shade right from the end of the side to the person who's cutting the tree. So in this way, we should try to learn, from the trees to become very tolerant of situations in our life. They will surely come and test us, but we should try to remember these examples and this specific verse from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that way we can progress in our social journey. So thank you very much. Yes, if there are any questions to these goals or corrections, please feel free to listen. Any questions now? Thank you very much.
Online devotees.
Yes. The goal is online. If there's any questions or comments or corrections.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Okay.
Just
Who
go
goes
ahead,
first?
Prabhu. Just go ahead.
Thank you. Prabhu, reading this shlok, I wonder how can someone give the daughter to 10 angry men just to pacify them? Wasn't there any other solution? This is very weird shlok. I don't think in this lesson you mentioned about the weirdness of this shlok. That's
Yes.
my question.
Thank you.
The question was, why was the wife given to these 10 angry men? Prabhu online said it was very weird. Can you reply? This man, Shailendra, is asking.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks. That's correct.
Yes, it's a good question. Thank you for that. So yes, you can see that, as I mentioned, these 10 personalities were very, very important. But as I mentioned as well, these devotees usually had the darshan of Lord Krishna just before this event. So we can understand that we might see that they are angry personalities in this situation, but they are actually pure devotees of the Lord. Because only pure devotees of the Lord can have a personal darshan. No ordinary being can actually, get the darshan of the Lord and do any activities. We may perform so many activities, wonderful activities, but we might not get the darshan. So these devotees were very, very exalted devotees, and they were able to bring the Lord down to this world, I think the other important thing is that she didn't just give their daughter without any regard. They didn't do it because they just wanted to stop the fire. They only did it because Lord Brahma, who is the creator of this universe, he gave that instruction to, give your daughter to Prachetas. And again, Lord Brahma is a very, very exalted personality. He also understands the will of Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu. So earlier in the chapter, in text 13, Prabhupada mentions the Prabhupada, that Lord Vishnu actually, when he was there giving his darshan to the Prachetas, he did specifically give a benediction to them to say that they will get the daughter of Shis as their wife. So it was not that just the Shis did it on their own accord, but again, they did it with the will of the Lord. And like I said, the anger that was exhibited by the Prachetas was in accordance with the will of God. It wasn't just done for their own sense gratification. So in that way, yes, it might look on the outside as a very weird situation, but when we dig deeper and understand that the Lord is controlling everything and we are just kind of puppets in that sense, going on and getting something or not getting something in the state the same. The Prachetas, they are just accepting already what Lord Vishnu sanctioned, which was the daughter of Krishna. That's okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu, for the wonderful class. Here, it was not very weird that.
Just looking at the microphone. Thank you. We just everyone is aware of microphones.
Yeah, Prabhu, thank you for your wonderful class. It was not very weird that the trees have offered their daughter, in that sense, daughter of Pramlocha and Kandu. They are not angry people, they are devotees, and they are great personalities, as you mentioned. And they have given the daughter at the request of Brahma. So, from our angle, we see that they are angry. But from Brahma's vision, he doesn't see Prachetas angry. He was just seeing them as his own children, great devotees. So it's just an emotion of the devotees. Sometimes, you rightly said, we cannot judge a person by its circumstantial emotion. So yes, they did the right thing because Brahma asked them to ask the trees to give the daughter. Also, the other point that you mentioned in Portuguese or in Sadhana Sarmaya is that see, Lord Rama is a supreme personality of God. He knows that he ought to kill Ravana. But he was clueless when he was trying to kill Ravana, and then all the 10 heads started growing again. At that time, Vibhishan actually instructs Lord Rama that his life hair is in an army, means with an eagle. And Rama, being an ideal human being, an ideal Kshatriya, he doesn't want to fight in that way because a Kshatriya not supposed to hit somebody at the navel. This is against the Dharma Shastra. And Lord Rama was not willing, but at the same time, if not that option, Ravana could never be killed. So the demigods are actually praying that the Lord Rama breaks his principle of an ideal Kshatriya. And Lord Rama was not willing because his role was to play ideal, king ideal Kshatriya. But he released the arrow. At that time, Hanuman, actually the arrow was going in a different direction. Hanuman requested his father, Lord, please make sure that the arrow goes and hits the Navi of Ravana. In that way, Ravana is not at fault. The Vaideva is at fault in that sense. So the demigods are so exalted, they are ready to take the blame, but for the universal betterment. So in this way, Brahma, he's seen as a person giving a nice princess or daughter to an angry man, but actually this is for the betterment of Prachetas, the betterment of the trees. In that way, the Prachetas will never show anger with the trees because trees become their in-laws' house. So this is one way to stop the problem altogether. So even in the case of Kundalini Vidyanati and Mukunda, so when he offended in mind, so he said, now you become a disciple, so that he will always serve and he will never commit mistake again. So this is a win-win situation. So that's what Brahma is a very great personality. I thought I would make this.
Yes. There was another question at the
Ask again on Zoom if anyone.
Yes, I think there was another question online. Somebody wanted to say something.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Kadamani Radha here. Thank you very much for the class. I'm really sorry, Prabhu, because of the clarity is not there, and I think we have some problem in the temple hall itself. So whatever I could hear, thank you very much for that, but we could not hear very clearly. So we need to do something about that. I had a suggestion that instead of using the temple microphone, maybe that we use just the smartphone itself. We can have a trial, but I don't have really answer for that. But thank you very much again. Hare Krishna.
I think we'll stop there. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai. Jai.
Quick Dasha. Thank you, Mataji. Welcome. Jai.
Thank you. Thank you. Made our day.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice.
Hare Krishna. See you tonight in the evening. Snan Yatra.